Good evening, everybody. I think we'll get started now, so let's just take a moment, shall we, to become centered. And Father, as we go through this evening, we become open and receptive to the living truth of Spirit. We're just open to God's good in our life. We are open to God's peace in our life. And we are willing to expand our consciousness into greater activity within ourselves and build for us that which is good and that which is true. For we do it and affirm it in the name and through the power of Jesus Christ. And so it is. Amen. Tonight's lesson, it was not publicized, but as usual, I'll be using some of this book, All About Goals and How to Achieve Them. And I will, when I read from a page or a paragraph, I'll tell you what the page number is. Some of you may have the book at home, or some of you may want to buy the book later. But we'll give you a flavor of it during tonight's lesson. Every one of us is a goal setter, whether we realize it or not. We goal set even if we go to the grocery store, or the doctor's office, or go to work, or go to visit someone. We goal set and set certain goals to reach a certain place at a certain time, or to do certain things. Some goals are major objectives, and some are minor objectives. All are important in making up the pattern of our lives. Many times we set negative goals, and then we wonder why we have negative experiences. And many times we set negative goals subconsciously, without really consciously thinking about it. Elmer Wheeler, the author of the book Sell the Sizzle and Not the Steak, says this about goals. He says, many men and women fail in life, not for lack of ability, or lack of brains, or even lack of courage, but simply because they have not organized their energies around a central goal. We all must realize that there are universal laws which we must work in agreement with in order to bring about successful results in our goal setting. One of the great laws that we use in Unity, and this book as well, is the law of mind action, which simply says, thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. In other words, the dominant thought that we hold in our mind will reproduce a mental equivalent of that thought out into our experience. And this is one of the keys during all of tonight's lesson and in goal setting that we need to understand. There's the law of goal achievement, which is right here. That which you can conceive of, believe in, and confidently expect for yourself must necessarily become your experience. Think about that. That which we can conceive of, believe in, and confidently expect. So we must have the thought, the idea to begin with. Then we must believe in it. And then we must confidently expect it, which is the faith factor. We'll talk about that a little later on. Setting and achieving goals is done in two parts. First is the inner, the invisible preparation, the preparation we do on the inner. And second is the outer, or the visible preparation. And the point I want to bring out here is that the inner preparation, the invisible, is always greater than the outer visible preparation. Your power of choice enables you to live like an angel or a devil, a king or a slave. Whatever you choose, your mind will create and manifest. That's a very important insight. See, whatever you choose, God has given you the right to choose anything that you want. Any thought that you want, you have a right to choose that. But you must always accept the responsibility for that thought. Now, on page 41 of this book, it says this: we have used this principle, asking the subconscious mind to work for us while we sleep, over and over again, to find the right house for us, the right automobile, the right answers to many problems. It works every time. Listen to this. Every need we have in life is an opportunity to set a goal. Every need that we have in life is an opportunity to set a goal and let the subconscious mind achieve it for us, through us. Tonight we're going to be dealing with three basic principles. The first one is, we live, we love, we work, we act, not in accordance with the truth, but we live, we love, we work, we act in accordance with the truth as we believe it to be, as we think it is, as we perceive it in our life. We will act according to that truth that we think is true. The second principle is, we move toward and become like that which we picture in our minds, whether it's good for us or not. Makes no difference. You have the tremendous power of creative thought. And all of the God's power in the universe comes to bear on what it is that you think about. And it has the job to bring that thought, that dominant thought, into experience in your life. And the law says it doesn't matter what you think. You've got freedom of choice. You can put in love or hate, poverty or riches. It makes no difference. The law works perfectly every time. You must choose. And thirdly, all meaningful and lasting change begins first on the inside, the invisible, and then works its way to the outer. It must first start in the imagination. Now, the word imagination comes from image making, you see. And we have the ability to form pictures in our mind. Do you remember the Columbus story? See, he wanted to sail around the world. But of course, in his day, everybody knew the earth was flat. See, his belief was very different from the rest of the people in his time, so he had to convince them to let him try. You see, that was the truth, as he believed that the world was round, while everyone else's belief was the world is flat, and so they acted in accordance with that belief. They would sail out those days in small ships. There wasn't any need for bigger ones. And they'd only go out so far, chicken out, and come back, you see, because they didn't want to fall off the end of the earth. But that was the belief they had. Therefore, they acted in accordance with that belief. And it made no difference what the truth was. It was the truth to them, and they acted out in accordance with that truth. You see, we are discovering that many of the things we once believed were impossible are now being done. You have go back to when Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. See, up to that point, it couldn't be done. Once Roger did it, then a lot of people started hitting that mark. You see, they were able to run in under 4 minutes. The interesting thing is, if you follow that story, is that when Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, they found out 2 days later that he really didn't. The watch was wrong. There was something wrong, and he really didn't do it, but everybody thought he did. And he thought he did, and he ran 2 or 3 days later and did it again, because he knew he could. So it's what we believe, what we accept of the truth in our life, we tend to bring out into our experience. Where do these imaginary limits come from? And what can you and I do about these limits in our own life? Tonight's session will help you understand some of the traps of the conditionings as it relates to setting goals. We have accepted the fact that people are born with it or born without it, or that she's a born leader, and so on. If you still believe this, that's old age thinking. It's just not true. No one's just born with it or born without it. Now we're beginning to learn that each of us as human beings has an unlimited potential if we don't accept the false barriers. You and I have unlimited potential for good, for prosperity, for love, for peace, for perfect health. We have unlimited. It's only limited by what we think about it. Dr. Suzuki in Los Angeles has children playing the violin by the time they are 3 and giving concerts by the time they are age 5. If you're an old age thinker, you will think, well, obviously they are born with it, inherited, of course. But Dr. Suzuki crashes this myth because he teaches these kids by the thousands. And if he can, he begins teaching the child before it is born. I know what you're thinking, Ray. That violin must be awfully small. Or Harry is probably thinking it must be awfully tough on the mother. But what he does, if he can, is to get the parents to come to class before the child is born, so that he can teach mom and dad that their child has unlimited potential. And then the parents will in turn train the child that they have unlimited potential to learn, to grow, and to change. And these kids go out and do it because they have the potentials already there, and they begin to understand the truth becomes to them that they have unlimited potential and that they can do these things. And it works. So you and I act in accordance with the truth as we believe it to be. And you and I also set goals in accordance with the truth as you think it is about yourself. We move toward and become like that which we picture in our mind, whether it's good for us or not. This is God's law, divine law, universal law. It works the same for all people. It works for the just and the unjust alike. You see, species man, you and I, are what we call teleological in nature. And that means we're the only animal that thinks in pictures. And we have that ability, that power, to think in pictures. Most every time we have a dominant thought about something, a picture comes along with it. And that's very, very powerful in our mind, as you'll see a little later on. Whatever dominant picture you have in your mind, you will move constantly toward fulfilling that picture in your human experience. And finally, all meaningful and lasting change begins first on the inside, on the inner, and then works its way to the outer. It must first start in the imagination. Oh, we can get temporary change. We can diet. We can stop smoking for a little while. or whatever the case may be. But what happens is the moment we relax, we begin to move back towards that same picture that we had, you see. That picture in our mind that we had before of our smoking, of our eating, overeating, or whatever the case may be. But for meaningful and lasting change, we need to change the picture first. That's the key. Not beating ourselves over the head because we fell down a little bit, but picking ourselves up, realizing we have unlimited potential to achieve our goal, and then begin to work on changing that picture of us on the inner. Let's look at the board for a minute. This is the mind, your mind, my mind, composed of conscious, subconscious, and what we can call superconscious, which is divine mind. We're made in the image and likeness of God. We all have divine mind within us. This is where our unlimited potential comes from. The conscious mind is open to the outer sense world, that we perceive the world we live in through our 5 physical senses. And we're pumping in that information that we get out here into this very powerful workshop of our mind, which is the subconscious. The conscious mind directs, chooses, analyzes, reasons, imagines, judges, decides on a course of action based on our immediate needs and goals. We do that all with the conscious mind. Conscious mind is very, very important to us, because this is where we choose what we allow into this powerful, powerful subconscious mind. We stand porter at the door of thought. You can let in what you want, you can keep out what you want, but you have to work at it, okay? Because we let in, all of us, me and everybody, we let in thoughts and ideas that are unlike the perfect nature of God. You see, and those are the ones that we want to keep out. Now let's look at the subconscious mind. A vast memory storehouse, like a computer. It controls all vital processes. Controls your heartbeat. Controls your breathing. In other words, we don't have to think about getting our heart started in the morning, right? It's automatic, see? It creates according to your thoughts. Now this is very, very powerful now. Remember, it can't judge. Whatever you put in there, it will move heaven and earth to bring into your experience. It has no power to choose or judge. None at all. That's done with your conscious mind. So once it's in here, then you have to deal with it or get rid of it. But as long as you leave it in there and let it continue to work, it's gathering power. Gathering power. It records and stores your interpretation of the truth as you believe it to be. Doesn't have to be true. Okay? It just records and stores whatever that belief happens to be. Example, it records and stores your thoughts, your self-talk, your emotions, and your pictures that you put in that come with your experience. It reproduces the mental equivalent of your dominant thought. This is real, raw power that you have right within you right now. Absolutely. Then we have divine mind, superconscious, if you will. Infinite intelligence. It all means the same thing. And this is open to the allness of God. To all that the Father has is yours. See, you've already got it. May not be using it all, but you've got it. You've got the potential there. Perfect mind, seat of all knowledge, realm of divine ideas. What are divine ideas? Perfect health, peace, love, joy, harmony, order, perfect human relationships, lavish abundance. All of those are the divine ideas of God that are within you right now. If you're looking for God's will in your life, God's will for you is to express all the goodness of God. Okay? All power of the universe resides here. Where? Within you. See, Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. That's where it is. That's where the powerhouse is. So we need to begin to learn how our mind works and begin to go with the flow, with the power, and use it constructively in our life. Okay, now that basically is how our mind works. The superconscious mind, okay, is what will, it has the power to, well, it makes your performance and behavior match your picture that you carry inside of you. You know, sometimes we walk around with a very weak picture of ourselves. We might think that we can't earn or shouldn't earn more than just bare necessities. That's where I was years ago. Okay? That was the truth as I believed it to be. And therefore, if I got any more money in to use, I became very uneasy. See, that was a sin. That was the truth as I believed it to be. So what did I have to do? Had to change the picture. Had to change my belief. And begin to work with that. And some of these beliefs that we have, some of the ideas, the concepts, are very deeply seated. And they don't just go out like that. We have to work at it and work with it. So if you are goal setting for success in any area, and you have failure or limited pictures, then you will be required to create new images and new pictures. See? What is the human thing that we do? When things go wrong, we get out here and we start messing up, changing people, trying to change events and circumstances. And what we need to do is get back in here and change ourselves, change our attitude towards what's happening out here, and begin to build some creative, beautiful ideas about ourselves, about God, and let the power work for us. On page 47, it says this: the conscious mind has the power of choice. The conscious mind can use all of its powers of mental investigation, analysis, study, weighing of facts to determine the choice of a goal to be set. That's what we do with our conscious mind. Very important. Once the choice is made, the subconscious mind will accept that choice as a direction. The potency of that choice will depend upon the intensity of the feeling, the intensity of the desire, the intensity of the acceptance, and persistence and perseverance of the conscious mind. The right use of the will is to keep the attention on the objective. See, keep your mind on your goal, not on the problems involved with it. Okay? How do we properly set goals? You do so by creating the picture of what you want. Do not choose or create pictures of what you don't want. Sounds easy. Everybody thinks, well, good night. I wouldn't create pictures of something I don't want. That's silly. We all do it. We all do it. A lot of times when we're confronted with something completely unexpected that strikes terror, perhaps, as we look at it initially, what's the first thing human beings do? They throw all their teachings out the window, don't they? And you go right back and start groveling, and you become part of the problem then. See, I do it, you do it. Dr. Don does it. Only when he's not walking on water, however. Okay, on page 51 and 52, it says this: there is no limit set by infinite mind. Absolutely no limits over here. That's part of you. Man can go as far as he wishes or stay where he is. His responsibility is to choose his goal. Choose your destination. The only limiting factor is you, or me, if I'm talking about me. If he continues to sit and shiver in the cold, whimpering and complaining, that is his right as a free agent. Never forget that. That is absolutely your right. But he can pick himself up and make his way to the warm glow of the eternal fire and enter into a life that contains all the elements of happiness. It's also our right. And that's what God wants for us. Others can help him, but he cannot do it for him. Even God cannot do it for you, because God doesn't choose for you. You choose. If it is his job and his alone to do it, yours or mine. On his voyage of self-discovery, he is the captain of his ship and therefore solely responsible for making harbor. Your responsibility then is to choose your destination, to choose your goal. God isn't going to do it for you. It is here, done consciously. Conscious effort. Whether you realize it or not, you are now experiencing today your past choices. And your tomorrow depends on today's choices. Every time you make a choice or set a goal, you set in motion the perfect power of the universe for the purpose of causing your choice to become manifest in your experience. Very, very important insight that whenever we set a goal, we set tremendous power, tremendous machinery into operation, whose sole job is to bring that dominant goal, that dominant thought, into fruition in your life. And we'll talk more about that. Most of us set goals on past experience. We must learn to set goals based on expectations. We must learn to think differently. Your past experience is usually full of misinformation. Past experience comes from a conditioned mind. Begin to base your goals on expectations, what you expect to have. Many times what I'm saying is past experience. A lot of times we may set goals, and if we're talking with someone else, or sometimes even ourselves, our self-talk might be, well, for heaven's sakes, you haven't had any of that education, and you had no experience. What makes you think you can do that? But I can tell you, if you have the desire within you to do something, you have the power to do it. And don't get caught in the trap of past experience. Go on expectations. So your choice is the first step in setting the goal, and so the first two steps, and there are 4, the first 2 steps, number 1, is get clearly in mind exactly what it is you want. Get clearly in mind exactly what it is you want. We can boil that down to one word: thought. And the second step is develop that strong conviction that it's already yours. It's in the now. You're living in that goal completed right now. And that's the feeling step. Remember that every time you set a clear goal, you set in motion the entire machinery of the universe for the purpose of causing your goal to become manifest in your experience. Now let's talk a little bit about desire. What do I want? And this is where the majority of people fail in the goal-setting process because they just don't know what they want. And in many cases, are not sure if their desires are right for them. How do you test that? How do you know? On page 55, he gives an excellent formula for that. How to test your desires. It's in 4 parts. The first one is, they're in 4 questions. Does it exist? The second part is, does it exist for me? Third, is it right for me? And 4, can I accept it? Let's talk about that for a minute. If you can answer yes to each of the 4 questions, then your desire is worthy of becoming a goal. Does it exist? Suppose your goal is for a large sum of money. You know that it exists. Does it exist? Yes. Does it exist for me? You can imagine it belonging to you. But when it comes to question number 3, perhaps you would feel guilty in having this money. Remember, I shared with you my experience? I thought it was a sin to have more than just enough to eke out a living. And therefore, in going over the desires, if I wanted a large sum of money, you see, it wouldn't be right for me, because I'd have terrible guilt feelings about it. You might think that the only way for you to have this money would be to steal it, or in some legal way, take it away from someone else. You might worry that having such a sum of money might cause you to have more responsibility than you want to have. Perhaps someone would want to marry you just for your wealth. And if you can't answer question number 3, is it right for me, in the affirmative, stop right there, because you'll never answer number 4. Can I accept it? But those are extremely good steps to follow in wondering, is my desire right for me? It says, as we ask ourselves the 4 questions, we must take into consideration that we are called upon to accept all the responsibilities that go with our desire. There may sometimes be inconveniences. So ask yourself, in establishing my desire as a goal, am I willing to accept all the responsibilities and inconveniences that go along with it? This is very, very important that you can ask those questions and come up with the right answers for yourself. If, like in my case, if I couldn't go past number 3, what do I have to do? I have to begin to change the picture. I have to begin to change my beliefs about money, right? That's where I need to change, is inside. Remember this, setting and achieving goals is done in 2 parts. Remember the inner preparation and the outer preparation. And the inner is always more important than the outer. Now, there are 3 forms of expectation. Talked about setting goals according to your expectations. There are 3 forms. The first one is hope, H-O-P-E, which expects an answer sometime in the future. The second form of expectation is belief, declaring something as true after it has become obvious to the senses. And this is kind of man's way. And the third and highest form of expectation is faith. Faith declares that she's already received before there's the slightest visible evidence. And this is God's way. Faith declares she has already received in the now even before there's any visible evidence out here, is to capture that feeling of already receiving the goal that you want. That's emotion. Pardon? Belief, declaring something is true after it becomes obvious to your senses, your 5 physical senses. By goal setting, you are developing what you want to experience by first creating it in consciousness, in your mind, in thought and feeling. See, we create it there. Then the mental equivalent of that picture will tend to reproduce itself out in your experience. So does it make a difference what you think? You better believe it. What was Dr. Don's first book? Your thoughts can change your life. And they do. How do you know if your goal is realistic? Well, on page 101, he covers that too, and he comes out with some very good ideas. Because a lot of people want to know, well, gosh, is my goal realistic? He says goals that do not conform to the laws of life are unrealistic goals that are not going to be realized. For instance, if I were to have as my goal walking on the moon and had no intention of becoming an astronaut, but relied solely on some handmade wings I made in the basement, I would have an unrealistic goal. But he says a person who has a poverty consciousness, think about what I told you about myself, a person who has a poverty consciousness all his life and sets a goal to be a multimillionaire in a single bound, you see, is completely unrealistic. It's too far a jump from a belief in poverty to absolutely the belief gone and you're now experiencing in one leap lavish abundance. It's too much. We have to take it in stages, you see. Be realistic about it. A realistic goal is one that the goal setter can believe in and accept for himself. And go right back to the law of goal achievement. That which you can conceive of, get the idea of, believe in, and confidently expect, which is the faith, for yourself, must necessarily become your experience. It is a law of our thinking that our subconscious mind tends to reproduce in our outer affairs that upon which our conscious mind most vividly dwells. See, we're saying the same thing. The best way to set a goal is by writing out your goal in affirmation form. See? Now, an affirmation is not a statement of outer fact, but they are the truth of your inner higher being. Let me explain. When you make an affirmation, you're talking about you as a spiritual being that has unlimited potential. You see. Not what's happening out here. We don't affirm that, you see. Affirmation stated and repeated with feeling of the goal fulfilled will inspire and motivate you. And you never, never, never say an affirmation to make something true that isn't true. You say it because it is true right now on the spiritual side of your life. That's who you really are as a spiritual being. See, you can't see me. I'm just in this physical body. Okay? I'm an eternal being just like you are. But you can't see the real me. I can't see the real you. I can only see what you present to me. Okay? But the real you is inside. That's the eternal being that continues life. You see, life never stops. We just change forms and change bodies. That's all. Here's some examples of a good affirmation. For example, let's say that you wanted to affirm or your goal set for $5,000 a month. And a good affirmation would be, I am now earning $5,000 each and every month. Now, right now. See? Even though it hasn't come to pass yet. I am now earning $5,000 each and every month, and I enjoy the feeling of excitement and power. Being able to pay all my bills, buy anything I want to buy, and invest in the exciting projects I choose. Notice the trigger words that, for me, trigger emotion. And that's, you've got to build a feeling in this affirmation that will trigger and generate emotion within you. Feeling of excitement, power, pay all my bills. Those, to me, are exciting terms. Use your own, don't use mine, because it's important that you use words that trigger emotion in you. In some of my affirmations, I'll use the word God. In other words, it doesn't fit for me. It doesn't do anything for me. I might use spirit. I might use infinite intelligence. I might use divine mind. Okay? Or I might use some other term that generates excitement and enthusiasm when I say the affirmation, because the feeling part is critical. And seeing it in the now is already done, and you're already there. We talked earlier this evening with some people that were thinking about moving to another state, for example. Well, the answer is that you begin to picture and build that picture in your mind as already being there. Right now. You see? And you will tend to move toward and become like that picture which you hold in your mind. But it's important, it's critical that you get the feeling for that and can believe it and have faith that it is done already, even though it hasn't appeared yet. Supposing you want more or better social mobility, an affirmation might go like this. It is easy for me to treat everyone I meet with love and courtesy because I have that deep feeling of warmth and love for myself. See, we all need to love ourselves. And who is ourself? The spiritual being that's a part of God, the Christ. See, we say in unity, I behold the Christ in you. That means I see you as a spiritual being, whole, perfect, and complete. And I would say don't worry about failing. Always have your affirmations in the first person in the now. You usually start, I am, it's easy for me, or something like that, but always personal, because you're the only one that can change. Don't worry about failing, because you will either earn, E-A-R-N, or you will learn, L-E-A-R-N, from every experience. You'll do either one of the two, and both are positive experiences. So take the word failure out of your vocabulary. You just don't need it any longer. Minto, when he used to come here about once a year, he always used to say that God will never permit you to fail. He says you've only had some experiences that you didn't like, some successes that you didn't like. Okay, let's review the first two steps now. You must get clearly in mind exactly what it is you want. Second, develop that strong conviction, that feeling that it's already yours, that you're already there, that you're already earning $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is that you want. Making sure that that goal is realistic and that you can see yourself in possession of it. See, and if you can't, let's say it's 5,000, and let's say that you can't see that goal, that's a little too far out, then back up. Make it 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever it is. Okay? Then as you goal set and approach the 2,000, let's say, then before you reach the 2,000, then you goal set to 3 or 2,500. And continue to goal set through, not just 2, and stop there. Okay? Of all the beautiful truths pertaining to the soul which have been restored and brought to light in this age, none is more gladdening and fruitful or divine promise and confidence in this, that man is the master of thought and the molder of character and the maker and shaper of condition, environment, and destiny. That comes from James Allen in his little book, As a Man Thinketh. Now, he puts it right on the line. Man is the master of thought. We choose the thoughts, complete master of what we think, the molder of our character, and the maker and shaper of conditions, environment, and destiny. That's what you can do. In his book in the front is a beautiful poem, which I love, and it goes like this. Mind is the master power. This mind is the master power which molds and makes. And man is mind, and evermore he takes the tool of thought, and shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment out here is but his looking glass. Okay? It's a mirror of what's going on in here. So if you don't like what's going on out here, get back inside of yourself and there make the correction. Okay? Now let's talk about the other 2 steps. We had first thought, next feeling. The third one is do everything you can in the outer to bring it about, to make it happen. And fourth is the release step, or the acceptance. Let go. Let go of tension, anxiety, fear. Don't be like the farmer that plants wheat or corn and runs out every day, digs it up, see if it's going to germinate. Got to have some faith that God's going to, if you know and understand how your mind works and the vast powerhouse that you have here, co-created with God, and use that power to accomplish the goals that you set, you'll find tremendous joy. There's a poem which many of you are familiar with, which just says, let go and let God. And I've got a little one for you tonight. In fact, I got a packet for you. As children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend, I brought my broken dreams to God because he was my friend. But then instead of leaving him in peace to work alone, I hung around and tried to help with ways that were my own. At last I snatched them back and cried, how could you be so slow? My child, God said, what could I do? You never did let go. So remember that. I'll give you a copy so that you can learn to let go and release and accept and let go of tension, anxiety, and fear about your goal, about it being completed, and just know that it is completed. You have the joy of watching it unfold in the outer. On the back of that card is some very good advice. Decide on an appropriate solution, then keep your mind on the solution, not on the problem. Okay? I want to talk about this self-esteem cycle, which you see right here. Think about the powerful mind that we have over here. But when we have an experience, normally we talk to ourselves about it. You know, what a dumbhead am I? Oh, I did that terrible. And so on and so forth. Usually we're beating ourselves over the head if we've had a bad experience out here. Or we've got deep-seated fears, or we're creating this tremendous picture or image of us, weak, fearful, whatever it may be, ill, and the self-talk reinforces the picture or image that we have of ourselves. This picture or image controls our performance and behavior out here. See, it becomes the truth as we believe it to be, and therefore we act out that truth in our performance and behavior. And then when we have a behavior or performance, either positive or negative, it'll stimulate more self-talk. And we get into this vicious circle, so to speak, go round and round, and if we're still self-talking ourselves to death, saying how terrible we are and what we're lower than a worm in the dust and all that sort of thing, we create a picture like that, and it controls our behavior, you see. And our self-talk is really an affirmation. That's what our self-talk is. It's an affirmation. And a simple test to see if you're on the right track is ask yourself this: do I want this thing that I am saying about myself realized in my life? If I'm saying what a dumbhead I am, do I really want that out here in my life? You know, spread out before the world so they can see it and there's no doubt then? If we're saying it about another, is it something that we really want to see out in their experience? Because remember, anytime you're talking self-talk, you are creating, shall we say, you're putting in here the words and the pictures that are going to generate the power to bring a mental equivalent out into your life. Let me read you page 153 in this book. What he calls them mental barriers, and it's a good way. See if you recognize any of these. I'm too young. I can't expect to set the world on fire at my age. I'm too old. My life is over. I'll soon retire anyway. I'm too stupid. I'm too clumsy. I'm awkward. I'm a slow thinker, sort of dense. Never have a good memory. Nothing works out for me. What can you expect with my lack of education? Do you hear those affirmations? And every one of them will trigger a picture to go along with it. We also have another book, which I'm not going to go through tonight, but it's a book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And in here, he's got some dandies too, which we don't need to be putting that out into the universal. But it's an excellent book talking about this self-talk, what we say to ourselves, you see, and the damage it does. So this is what makes the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Okay? Get into a poverty thinking, thought, syndrome, and all you do is perpetuate the same thing out in your experience. There's another poem which I have here. Most of you are probably familiar with it. It's called My Wage, W-A-G-E. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening as I counted my scanty store. For life is a just employer and will pay whatever you ask. But once you have set the wages, then you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have gladly paid. The author, that's Jesse Rittenhouse, but you see, whatever we ask of life, it will gladly pay. Whatever we put in here, it has the sole purpose of bringing that dominant thought into existence. On the back of that card, which you'll receive tonight, is anything the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. From Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. Just to help you remind yourself of the power that you have. How does the self-talk cycle work? Let me give you some examples. In football, which we're getting into that season again, but even in high school, I guess they put the games on film. They take films of the games, college and pros. And what they do generally is the next time after the game, when they get together, they run the film and they show them all the dumb things that they've done. And the coach will say, all right, run it again, Charlie. And Bill, he says, now watch this. And he shows everything that Bill did wrong. So he gets it and he says, you got it now? Yeah, I got it, Coach. Well, let's go out and practice. So they go out and practice, do the same dumb thing all over again. See? Batters get in slumps. How do they do that? What happens all of a sudden? Well, they come up one day and they're not just feeling right, feeling a little down, and they got a fast pitcher in there, and the ball comes back and he hardly sees it, and he thinks to himself, my God, I'll never be able to hit that. Just isn't possible. And with that thought that he's putting in here, his wrist will automatically turn, so he'll miss the ball. He doesn't do that consciously. He wants to hit the ball. But he's giving the instructions to miss it. I can't miss. I can't hit that ball. Golfers, same way. I'm one of them. You know what my biggest problem is? Is get up to tee off and there's a lake out of here and I know the ball's going to go in there. It does. See? I got a beautiful picture of that. I'm working on that though. But that's what happens, you see. We build the mental equivalent first up here, you see. Sometimes you're called to get up in a meeting and speak, and fear sets in, and you get that uncomfortable feeling that settles behind the belt buckle. And we begin to think to ourselves, my God, I don't want to talk. I don't want to do this. I'll make a fool of myself. Who wants to hear me? My God, I'm terrible. And the first thing you know, we're back in this here, and we're doing all the things that a nervous person does. Most of you, I've told a lot of you people about Dr. Carl Symington. It's in this book right here on page 15. It says here, a prominent medical doctor specializing in cancer cure teaches his patients to mentally see the cancerous area completely healed. He has them imagine new cells replacing the old cancerous cells. He has them quietly meditating on this healed area each day and works with them on overcoming the mental and emotional feelings that contributed to the illness. They build new attitudes that cause healing. See? He's helping them to build by getting different pictures. See? And it works for those that can accept it. A few years ago, 3 or 4, Abby and I had the privilege of being in an all-day seminar with Dr. Symington. And he says, I've got a new technique that I'm using for my cancer patients. Because most every cancer patient he gets a terminal. At least that's the medical pronouncement. And he says, I teach them the fire walk. He says, I know you're thinking, what on earth does fire walking have to do with healing people from cancer? And he says, just this. He says, when I get these patients, he says, their belief system is this. If I walk in water, I get wet. Okay? If I fall off a cliff, I'll die. If I have cancer, I'll die. If I walk on fire barefoot, I'll get burned. And that's the belief system that they have. So he says, what I do is I teach them to walk on coals of fire, which are about 1,200 degrees hot, and they walk with their bare feet. I've seen it. I haven't done it yet. I'd like to do it sometime. But those that can do it, all of a sudden they say, my God, I can walk on fire and not get burned. I've got cancer. I don't have to die. And that's what he does, is to get that shock treatment to begin to change the self-talk, you see, and begin to have them start imaging. What he does is he gets a lot of people to image in their bloodstreams these fish with great big jaws and mouths. And they go around and they eat up all the bad cells. So there's nothing left but good ones. He said the ones that can make that switch, that change, they're healed or get remission. The others that can't, that think it's a lot of hokey, they just don't make it. But that shows you the power of the mind. See? We live, we love, we work, we act, not in accordance with the truth, but we live, love, work, act in accordance with the truth as we think it is about ourselves, as we believe it to be. If I believe I'm going to die, I've got all of the power going into that thought. Easy to change? Heck no. Didn't say it was easy. The Christian religion is the toughest teaching that I know of, if you're going to follow it. When your performance does not live up to your expectations, don't spend time belittling yourself and diminishing your self-image. And this is the human way to do it, see. We want to get in there and tell ourselves how terrible we are and start diminishing ourselves. Negative self-talk will only perpetuate poor performance. Instead, affirm to yourself, that's not like me. The next time, I'll be more patient. The next time, I'll be more loving. The next time, I'll approach my client this way. See? And what you do is immediately you say, that's not like me, and then you affirm what you want to be. More patient, more loving. I'll approach the client this way, and so on. What you're doing with these statements is giving positive and immediate feedback to your subconscious, and instead of recording a negative picture in here, we're recording a positive picture. See, we want to trigger a picture of the performance that we want. And the key to reinforcing an already existing good self-image, or in modifying a current self-image for the better, is to picture what you want your performance to be like, and to stop picturing what you don't want or are trying to avoid. Never, never try to complete a negative statement. Always reverse them and put them in a positive self-talk statement. Okay? When your performance pleases you and you feel good about it, you should use positive self-talk to reinforce the positive picture. Affirm to yourself, that's like me. I did that very well. Or good job, that's like me. Or if you're dieting, you get through a day, that's like me. I do that real well. It was easy for me. You see? And begin to reinforce that feeling with positive statements, and begin to picture yourself in the slim body, if that's what you're going for, a real healthy body, if you're changing eating habits, for example, and just begin to tell yourself that, hey, I did a good job. I'm proud of myself. That was easy for me to stay on my diet. See? Instead of telling yourself what a terrible thing you went through that day, you see, you need to begin to have the affirmative. Pat yourself on your back when you do well. I want to share with you another poem on goals, and the author is unknown. And it goes like this on this little green card. Blessed is the one indeed who in this life can find a purpose that can fill his days and goals to fill his mind. The world is filled with little people content with where they are, not knowing joy's success can bring. No will to go that far. Yet with this world there is no need for some to lead the rest, to rise above the average life by giving of their best. Would you be the one who dares to try when challenged by the task, to rise to heights you've never seen? Or is that too much to ask? This is your day, a world to win, great purpose to achieve. Accept the challenge of your goals and in yourself believe. You will be proud of what you've done when at the close of day you look back on your battles won, content you came this way. There's a book that was written on the great masters by a man named Walter Abel, where he refers to people like Beethoven and Mozart who were able to release this tremendous power that all of you have from the depths of your own being and use it for the purpose of accomplishing their own goals. Walter Abel in this book tells about Beethoven, who had set a goal to write a symphony. So Beethoven is sitting quietly, and all of a sudden he hears this chord. Just one chord of various tones and formations. And just like that, he has the whole symphony. It took him weeks to write it down on paper. It takes an orchestra almost an hour to play it. But he caught it all, just like that, in one flash. Where did it come from? Did it come out of the heavens? Out of some psychic flow? No, it came out of the depths of infinite intelligence, divine mind, superconscious mind, which he would hear as a symphony. A poet would see it as a poem. A sculptor would see it as a boy David. A painter would see it as a beautiful picture, landscape. An inventor would see it as a new invention for the betterment of mankind. Dr. Don would see it as a sermon or a lesson. A tremendous idea coming out of the depths within of direct inspiration. Of course, Beethoven was of a musical consciousness, so he saw it as a beautiful symphony. See? The true goal setting and goal accomplishing is a super mind process. Right here. Super mind process. In the infinite mind counterpart within, there is an answer to every need, and our job is to lowly listen. To begin to tune in on the divine ideas of God, and then come into agreement with them. What do I mean by agreement? Is being able to look through the appearance and behold. Let's say you go into a hospital room, okay, as I did last Sunday in intensive care with tubes coming out of his mouth and nose and all this sort of thing, couldn't talk. And the best thing for me to do was to get away from that because I was buying into the picture. See? My job was to behold the Christ in him as a perfect, loving light, a child of God. And that's how we become part of the process, is not buying in to the appearance out here. Whatever is presenting itself to us that we know is unlike the true nature of God. The divine idea represented behind the appearance was perfect health. Okay? That's what his true nature is. He's not expressing it right now. But again, faith declares that she has already received before there's the slightest visible evidence. So we begin to build the mental equivalent of what we want, of perfect health, know that it is absolutely certain and true on the spiritual side of life, and then begin to affirm that truth. We don't affirm the appearance. If you've got a busted bank account, you don't affirm that. You know that it is filled now, and you begin to see it already in your mind. Actually see entries in your checkbook or whatever, savings account, whatever it may be, of the amounts that you know that you can get, can have. Your goal that is right for you. And you see it as it is truly on the spiritual side of life. When setting and achieving goals, we wonder, where is the money going to come from? Where will I get the people, the clients, the customers? Where will I get the information that I need to achieve the goal? See, many of these questions that we ask about that, it's not even reasonable for us to have the answers at this point in the goal-setting process. Page 14, second paragraph, it says this: setting and achieving goals becomes an art and a science when one realizes that goal achievement is governed by definite mental laws. Mental laws, and not by luck or chance. Everyone should know these laws and how they work. Everyone should know the penalties of misusing the law, as well as the successes that come with applying them wisely and properly. What are the penalties? We set them up ourselves, because the law of mind action is always at work. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, and we get to choose the thoughts that we put in there. And so if we're putting in negative, devaluing thoughts, then we must accept the responsibility for negative experiences out in our own life. See, the human race has a built-in screening device that actually brings the needed information to you, sometimes referred to as the sixth sense. Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, you'll see this statement in there. Through the aid of the sixth sense, you will be warned of impending dangers in time to avoid them, and you will be notified of opportunities in time to embrace them. And this is a very apt description of the reticular activating system, which we all have, located at the base of our brain. At the time Napoleon Hill wrote his book, there wasn't much known about the reticular activating system. But he knew how it worked, and what results could be obtained by using it correctly. And this reticular activating system is that actual net-like group of cells, located at the base of the brain, which is also called our alerting device. It has a specific job of locking out all information, building a scotoma, a blind spot, to all information that isn't important or isn't of value to you right now. Remember, you all have this, and I have it too. It's a screening device, like the executive secretary that sorts out all the junk mail. Okay? Let me give you a good example of how this works. Maybe some of you experienced this. A mother is in a room going to sleep, and the next room is a little baby Out in the other room is the teenagers with having a little party and the TV on, and there's planes going overhead, and they're right near a freeway with trucks going by. The mother is sound asleep. Absolutely hears nothing at all. Baby wakes up and cries, and that information gets through because that's important. She gets up and takes care of the baby. You see. And all of us have had similar experiences like that. See, the information that's important to her gets through. All the rest of it is screened out, blocked out. So our reticular only allows information to get through that is of value or is a threat. Everything else is absolutely locked out. So here's the important point to remember. You must determine what is of value to you. In other words, you have to set a goal. What is of value to you? What kind of job are you looking for? What kind of refrigerator do you want? What kind of a house? What kind of a car? What kind of knowledge do you want? You must set a goal first before the information gets through. It's locked out. If you don't know what job you want, for example, you look around and you believe that there's no jobs available. Nobody wants to hire you. Because that information doesn't get through until you have set a clear goal. Remember, our first step was get clearly in mind exactly what it is you want. You know, until you decide that you want a Park Avenue Buick, so you never see them around. But once you've decided what you want, you set a goal for that, you see these Buicks all over the place. See? You think I wonder where they came from. They weren't there before. No, they were there before. You just didn't see them. See? Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that you have to set a goal first, clearly in mind. The information does not get through first. You've got to set a goal. Get clearly in mind exactly what it is that you want. See, there's information all over the place. There's information throughout the whole universe, and you can't get it all in at one time. It'll drive you nuts. So we have this screening device that just keeps the stuff away, you see, until you have set a goal and decided what's important to me. Then you begin to see. The reticular opens up, and you find what you're looking for all over the place. You see other people with them. See jobs open up that you knew never existed before. See? That's the idea. When you begin to understand the use of your reticular activating system and use it intelligently with faith, so-called miracles will happen in your life. And it'll appear as if magic. But a miracle is just the way it's supposed to be. So I want you to expect a miracle. Okay? You get one of these cards, carry it with you, put it in your home, on the mirror, or in your car. Always be expectant of good things happening in your life, and begin to build that mental equivalent within you for the fruition of that. We have another little card for you, which is on white. Just to remind you, it says there are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. And the other one is both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought. Both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought. Just to remind you again. There's this little one that's called Winners and Losers. It says the winner is always part of the answer. The loser is always part of the problem. The winner always has a program. The loser always has an excuse. The winner sees an answer for every problem. The loser sees a problem for every answer. The winner sees, I put this in because I'm a golfer. The winner sees a green near every sand trap. The loser sees 2 or 3 sand traps near every green. The winner says it may be difficult, but it's possible. The loser says it may be possible, but boy, it's difficult. The winner sees an opportunity in every problem, while the loser sees a problem in every opportunity. Remember this, change the belief about yourself. Believe in your new self, accept your new self, live your new self. Actually be the new person you have accepted yourself to be. Remember, it all begins in the mind. What we involve in our mind, we evolve into our experience. I want to leave you with the final review of the 4 steps. 1, get clearly in mind exactly what it is you want, the thought. Develop the strong conviction that it's already yours, the feeling. Do everything in the outer you can to bring it about, to make it happen. That's action step. And 4th is let go, release, accept it as already done. And let go of all the tension. That's the acceptance step. 4 steps. Only 1 is done in the outer. The action step, number 3. 1, 2, and 4 are all done on the inner. And the inner is more important than the one outer that you do. I want to close with this poem, which probably all of you are familiar with. It comes from Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. I have a card for it. It says, if you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think you can't, it's almost certain you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost. For out of the world we find success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in a state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win that prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or late, the one who wins is the one who thinks he can. On the back of that card, again, I become what I think. I am a winner. And underneath that, the law of mind action, so you won't forget it. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Don't forget, I'll have the ushers hand out a packet in just a few minutes that each of you can have and take with you. But I hope that with this visit that we've had tonight, that you'll become feeling better about your goals and know that you can achieve them and accomplish them. You have the power within you right now to accomplish any of your goals. Yeah, it's going to take work. Probably some of the hardest work you've ever had is to change yourself and do it without banging yourself over the head. It's not easy, but it's tremendously worthwhile. Let's just take a moment, shall we? And just open our hearts and minds to the beautiful living truth of Spirit. Father, we give thanks for all of the good that's unfolding in our life. We know that we can accomplish that which we desire. We know how to check out our desires. We know how to Find out if it's realistic. And then we know how to build, create with God the mental equivalent of what it is that we want to experience in our life. Whether it be good human relationships, whether it be perfect health, whether it be expressing more of God's love and peace in our minds, in our hearts, in our life. We have it all. It's all within us now. And we can express this God self at our very highest and best at all times. And we give thanks as we pray in the name and through the power of Jesus Christ. And so it is. Amen.